It began with hopes. Dreams. A vision. It began with a man who saw a railroad carved out of the old Santa Fe Trail. It was Cyrus K. Holliday, the pioneer, the entrepreneur who persevered to make the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railway a reality. A charter was drafted in 1859, and in 1868, the first shovels of Topeka soil, signaling the start of construction, were tossed. Horsepower became steam power. No invention has played a greater role in the advancement of our nation as the development of the steam locomotive. In its 125-year history, Santa Fe operated over 3,000 steam engines. When the diesels began replacing steam power in the 1930s, it marked an end of an era. In 1937, it was the red and silver twin diesels that took the lead on the new luxury liner Super Chief. Traveling from Chicago to Los Angeles in just 39.5 hours, the 3,600 horsepower electromotive engines were 14 hours faster than its steam predecessor. Then in 1972, as Amtrak took over the nation's passenger lines, the brilliant red and silver became a bright yellow and blue. The yellow and blue locomotives were dedicated solely to freight service. In 1989, over 17 years after they were last seen on the Santa Fe, the red and silver war bonnet returned. A series of high horsepower diesel locomotives became better known as the Superfleet and are still running today. Superfleet power and the steam of yesterday joined forces in the summer of 1992 in a special employee recognition train. 3 diesel-electric engines teamed with the Santa Fe 3751 for a historic journey. On a sunny Southern California morning, the 3751 under steam was about to embark on her biggest challenge since the 1950s. The round trip from Santa Fe's Los Angeles Hobart Yard to Corwith Yard in Chicago would be the longest run of her life. On this August 30th, 1992, almost 35 years to the day she was retired, this Baldwin 484 pulled 12 cars of Santa Fe employees, friends, and family on a journey into the past. This is not a story about her 10 years of restoration or the glory days of the past, but of the men who ran with her from LA to Chicago and back. This is Santa Fe's Symphony in Steam. Assistant Vice President Transportation Homer Henry organized and supervised the trip.
We had 8 retired Santa Fe engineers that operated this train over the last 17 or 18 days. They had a tremendous amount of fun. It's much like riding a bicycle, apparently. It came right back to them. They had a great time. As soon as we would stop, these old engineers would get off and start shaking hands with the kids and handing out buttons and stuff. And they were asking for autographs and just to shake the hands of a real engineer, because they looked the part. This train looks like a railroad train. And the school children were the highlight of the trip for a lot of us.
Jack Elwood is a retired Santa Fe engineer and road foreman of engines. He spent 41 years with Santa Fe, much of that time running steam engines, including the 3751.
This engine was used in overland passenger service on the Santa Fe between Los Angeles and Kansas City on their main passenger trains in the 1940s. And I was on this particular engine in June of 1943, which is 49 years ago. And it's a source of real pleasure to me to again work on this wonderful steam engine. Steam has been really a obsession with me, and I hated to see him go, but this is going to revive all the long ago memories. Well, I think it's just the feel of handling this enormous piece of machinery. It's hard to describe, but when you put your hand on the throttle and open it up, you can just have a feeling of immense power, and it kind of goes through your whole body and gives you a big charge.
Retired engineer Frank Cottle recalls his days with Santa Fe.
In the old days, if I could have afforded to work here for nothing, I would have worked for nothing. It was great. Not only myself, but the bulk of the other fellows. It was an experience, it was a thrill. A steam engine is a living, being piece of machinery. Every one of them is different. They all have their own idiosyncrasies and characteristics. They have a different feel. We used to keep in our time books years ago notations behind each engine number, how much atomizer she used, how far down you dropped her, how hard she was on water, how well she steamed, how poor she steamed. If she had a screeching whistle or a good whistle, so you could put a little bit of waste in your ears so it wouldn't rattle your head too bad. But all these things, everything was a new experience. Every day you went to work was a free show in 100 miles. And 100 miles was a day's pay in those days, but it was a free show. Years ago when we had the chief up there, I had a second section of the chief going into Oakland, and we had the train from Bakersfield to Oakland, and they turned us loose without restriction, and it was the 3456, and we clocked her at 124 miles an hour down through Cornell. I can tell you that now that I'm retired and they can't come after me. And we're going to have this engine here. I think they got a maximum on her for 70, and we'll probably run her about 50, so she'll just be purring. She won't even be working. It's just a nice thing to be doing. But again, the members of the organization, to see them and the joy that they see in the engines being put back together and being used. And here it is, looking better than new. I never saw a jacket on an engine as nice as this. It's the prettiest jacket I've ever seen. And the cab is beautiful. They've done a marvelous job of restoration. And you and I are standing here talking, and we hear the fire in the firebox there. They're building her up. And all of these things remind you of grandmother's kitchen stove. Nice, warm, comfortable place.
Rufus King retired in 1986 after 39 years with the Santa Fe Railroad. His childhood dream was to work for the railroad. Running the 3751 was an experience he never anticipated.
Well, it's a fulfillment of a dream that I never dreamed. I never dreamed that I would be able to come back and run a steam engine again, ever in my lifetime. You know, with the diesels and everything, steam engines were in the parks, you know, and in my fondest dreams, I never thought I'd be able to run a steam engine again. And this has been an opportunity of a lifetime for me. And it just kind of puts a lump right there, you know, but it's all been good. I never wanted to be anything but a locomotive engineer from the time I was a child. So I spent my whole career doing exactly what I wanted to in life. And I got this invitation to come back and run this 3751. And this engine is one of the best ones I have ever run. These people that restored this engine did a miraculous job restoring this engine. This engine is like a fine-tuned Swiss watch. It is perfect. It is perfect. At any speed, it just rides like a dream, runs like a dream, steams like a dream. The whistle sounds good.
Bill Setzer is a general supervisor of train handling for Santa Fe, working out of Fort Madison, Iowa. As one of the supervising crew members, he rode the 3751 in a driving rainstorm on September 10th.
Yesterday the rain was coming down so hard with the low barometric pressure, the steam and the smoke was coming down alongside of the cab. We couldn't even see the signals. So John and I were having to hang out the side in that rainstorm and try to catch a milepost and a signal so we knew where our speed restrictions and locations were at. And we were commenting about what these guys had to put up with on these steam engines. It was pretty good experience.
In 1986, engineer Jess Bootman retired with 35 years of service. Getting back into the cab of 3751 was just like he remembered.
Well, I got on in Amarillo, Texas, and the sounds and the smells were familiar, but I needed to get the senses back. So the other engineer with me, Mr. King, he says, why don't you let me run it and you fire it and you'll get your senses back. And about 150 miles later, I got it all back, and then I went over and run it, and I've been running it just about ever since from Amarillo, Texas. I'm really astounded at all the people that would come out and see this steam engine. In the old days, everybody waved at the engineer and the conductor. Then that disappeared. And all at once with this steam engine, every form of society has been out blowing kisses at you, waving to you. It's absolutely phenomenal what the people's attitude has reversed by just seeing this engine. Those volunteer men of the San Bernardino Historical Railroad Society, they must have had a lot of experts with them, or somehow they knew what they were doing, because that engine is so perfect. Every 90 degrees that comes over and that valve cuts off and there's no leakage. It's got full power. It reacts instantly, and everything on that engine works 100%. Absolutely amazing.
Engineer Max Smith retired in 1984 after 43 years of service. He was Rufus King's supervisor during their early days with the railroad. He recounts his run with the 3751.
It was a wonderful trip, brought back so many memories that we've forgotten these locomotives, what they were to do and have done in the past. It's certainly a wonderful thing. We should have more of these machines in the country.
I don't think there's a better way to display our heritage and the commitment of our employees to this company than utilizing a fine example of the historical past of this company, coupled directly to a very modern diesel locomotive, coupled to the highlight of the era of the railroads, the 50s and 40s with this equipment. And it brings it to the focal point with many of our employees who've never ridden on a train, our employees' families who've never ridden on a train. And it brings it all together in a moving piece of nostalgia.
I've been a lover of railroad from I can remember, and so you have to have the desire and the pride, and if you've got that, why, boy, was a fine job.
Nostalgia is dripping off of this engine, and it turns people on, and it's that part of it is a lot of fun.
Absolutely wonderful. Poetry set to music. Tchaikovsky's 1812 Overture couldn't sound any better than that engine.